It's Wednesday evening, and that means it's time for another Auburn Family Night. This is our weekly live call-in show where we'll talk about anything and everything Auburn, basically saying if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. We'll get into your comments, your questions, your calls, your commentary. This is your show. Let's get into it right now. War Eagle Auburn family and a special War Eagle and welcome to those of you that consider yourselves part of our E2C network family. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay, on Facebook, Google, YouTube, all the different places, times, multiverses with which you can get this content. We appreciate you being here and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. On tap for you in this live stream, for those of you live especially, is an Auburn Family Night. We are making the show about you, what you want to discuss, your topics, your questions, and your calls. The phone lines will now be open, brought to you by our friends at All Things Auburn. Do check them out at allthingsauburn.net for a place that you can not just stay when you come to the loveliest village on the plains, but to have a great Auburn experience, which is what we're all about here. So thank you for them for having the phone lines open. Click at the link at the top on YouTube. If you're watching somewhere else, you'll have to come over to YouTube to access that. We'll kind of go off of whatever, if we get any calls tonight, or else we'll just go off of your comments, questions, and everything else that you may or may not want to discuss this evening. A couple things that you could do for me. Smash the like button. Let me know you're here with a War Eagle. Check in where you're watching from. All those good things. A lot of you have been here before, know the drill. Do this even if you're watching the replay. We want to just jump into, talking Auburn stuff with you all tonight. So while you're thinking about some of those things that maybe you want to start our conversation off with, let me do what I call set the table and bring you some things that are obviously probably top of mind for a lot of you, but maybe there's some things that you're not thinking about that we could discuss tonight. Obviously, if you have been hiding under a rock, you don't know this, but within the last hour and change, Janai Broom announced he's coming back. We did a whole live stream dedicated to that. So if that's all you want, you can go over to that live stream and watch that replay. We're going to talk about it here as well. But that is obviously something that's there for you if you need it. We can dive into some more things surrounding that. The transfer portal is wide the flip open for college football. And thus far, it's been pretty quiet for Auburn football. Now, I don't say that like nothing's happened, but all I heard was literally the floodgates were going to open. They opened. I don't know what went in or out of it yet, but it is open. So we can talk about that. Still plenty of comments out after spring practice abound for football, things of that nature, speculation for Auburn basketball next year with the Janai situation. There, as you can see in our preview image or our promo image for this show, the War Eagle flight happened for baseball again, which was a good shot. We got our video courtesy of our friend Michael Floyd that we've shared on social media and here on YouTube. That's on the table. Baseball got a win last night, which are few and far between at this point. And softball's had a nice little upswing of late. So those are kind of the big things I would say on top of all the things that we can discuss. But maybe there's something that I didn't bring up that you would like to, and I think people forget sometimes too. This is your show, so you doesn't have to be something that's about happening right now, like breaking news or the stuff that's relevant. If you've got, hey, Kyle, what is your top 5 places to eat in Auburn? We can talk about that too. We did that today on TikTok, actually, a little bit of somebody was coming to Auburn this weekend for, I think it's the Auburn, Kentucky softball matchup, and they were asking where to eat, and that got me super excited. So we talked about that for a little bit, but I say all that to say, you pick the topics, you pick the questions, and we'll go with that. Let's just start right here. Anybody else excited about Janai Broom coming back? I mean, my goodness, good news abounds for Auburn right now. It started off obviously with at the end of the season of not I know that some of you, I just realized that light's off. Sorry, it's going to get a little lighter in here. There you go. I realized, I was like, why is it so dark in this room? And then I realized I didn't have that light on. I hope that's better looking to me. I don't know. Maybe you say, well, now I can see you better, Kyle, thus making my experience worse. But hey, I'm sorry. This is what you get when you come over here. Obviously, when we talked about the departures, very mixed opinions. Some people were happy to see happen. Some people were happy to see none of them happen. And I think to say that guard play needed to improve this past season, after this past season, was the truth. You can look at stats to back that up. How we express that, though, I think sometimes is lost in the nuance of what you can and shouldn't or should say on social media. So I say, I keep tangenting here. I say all that to say that those departures, any departure sometimes is perceived as a bad thing just because why is someone leaving? But sometimes people see writing on the walls and want opportunities elsewhere. It's good to have things like the new point guard coming in, Dylan coming back, and now Janai coming back. Seems like it's going to be mostly good news from here on out. I missed the Nike stuff. Well, you missed a lot, John. You missed a lot. I'm going to highly, highly, highly recommend that you go back and watch the show we did with Clint. I mean, it's got everything in there. If you don't want to watch the thing, you can listen to the audio podcast. We put that up there for people, but you'll miss some of the shenanigans that happened in the show because I had to cut those out for the audio quality purposes. Basically, Clint lost connection to his video for a little bit there, and it got pretty funny. So if you want to see those antics, watch the video. And that it was a week ago that this all happened. So he came on to the version of this show last week after the fact of that, just to talk some more about that. So that's all out there. Austin and I talked about it this week. We'll release that segment by itself as well. So the highlights of it are, if you're asking what are the facts that we know, it's going to start July 2025 for 10 years. And that's all we know right now. I would imagine some more things will come out. A lot of times media members will do freedom of information request and get more, whether it's how much the deal was for, stipulations, things like that. So that's all we have to go off of right now. But what Clint gives you in that conversation we have is Clint's a guy that studies this stuff. So he'll be able to give you best guesses about what to anticipate. And so that's why we called it What You Need to Know for Nike and Auburn. My opinion, I don't know if you've heard my opinion yet, is that I was a fan of Under Armour. And let me back that up. I was a fan of us being associated with Under Armour. I won't call myself a fan of any apparel group. I just don't care all that much. I'll just wear whatever feels good and whatever looks good, whatever's cheapest, but none of it's cheap these days. So to me, I think even though I may have been one that was more on the fence of us staying with Under Armour, I see the value there with us going to Nike. And so it's hard to argue that. So that's kind of where I stand on it. If you're wondering about my opinions of it, I honestly didn't think we were going to have that busy of a week last week with all the people departing, the Nike news, Dylan deciding to stay, the JP Pegues. I anticipated that we would at least have like a week or two, maybe 3 tops before things started spiraling out of control again for us and content creation. But it is just ever since basketball ended, it's just been we had A-Day, and then after that we had March Madness continued, and man, it's just been busy. It has just been a busy, which is a good thing, right? We all love talking to Auburn, and so having things to talk about that are obviously very, very important. If anybody hasn't had a chance to voice their opinions about the whole Auburn Nike thing, love to hear some of those, some of your commentary, thoughts, questions, derogatory rebuttals, as long as it's productive. I'll always take those. If anybody has anything that they'd like to share about that. Where does everybody stand on transfer portal stuff? How we feeling? What do you guys think about it? Where do you think we're going to draw players from? Where do you think we're going to lose them? Obviously, a lot of that is very important to a lot of you guys out there. But, me, I'm someone that doesn't focus so much on the before they commit, they sign thing. I focus after the fact of that. And I know that is sometimes a little bit frustrating for a few of you guys, but I'm obviously open on this show, especially to talk about a few of those things. Because I know that some of you are very excited, very focused, very interested about a few of those topics. So if that's something that you all want to hit, I've seen there's been discussion around somebody from Penn State. I saw today on TikTok when we were doing our live stream there, a lot of focus on a running back from Ohio State potentially getting looked at by Auburn. I don't necessarily see somebody like that, probably of that caliber, coming to Auburn when you've got a star like Jarquez, a guy like Damari backing him up, an up-and-comer like Jeremiah Cobb, and a specialist like Brian Petit currently here. But I know that there was a lot of speculation around that. For me, it's the defensive line. I think is the focus, and coach has said as much. Maybe defensive backs as well, offensive line maybe. John says possible new running back and possible transfer from Ohio State. Are those, you mean like the two together? Like that's what we were just talking about? I mean, it's possible. I'd be interested to see if it happens. Without somebody leaving, I don't know that that's going to happen. But if somebody were to enter the transfer portal, then maybe that kind of raises your eyebrows and you go, hey now, maybe there is something to this. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if anything comes of it. I don't necessarily anticipate it. My mind, when I think about needs and wants, is going to be the defensive line, is going to be maybe defensive backs, offensive line. Can we find some pieces there to help fill in some gaps if we have any? I think people continue to forget that we've got this great, what I think is a high potential group that's been coming up in the ranks while we've been patchworking our offensive line over the last several seasons. And that's the group that's going to lead us hopefully into the next wave and phase of things. All right, we got our first caller tonight, so we're going to go ahead and get him in here and say hello. It's one of our regular callers. We love talking to him because he is what I love to call Captain Optimism. Let's say hello. What's going on, sir?
More Eagle.
How you doing, buddy?
Doing good.
Good. What's on your mind tonight?
I think we will get
we catch you in the middle of something.
a transfer quarterback, 5 stars.
You think we're gonna get a transfer quarterback 5-star? Who would that be?
Maybe KJ Lacey.
You mean for this upcoming year?
No, I'm talking about 2025.
2025. Okay. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say that's never that's never not a possible. How do I say that without doing a double? That's always possible. I know I was doing double negatives. It's always possible that it could happen. I think the quarterback room's pretty full even after that point, especially if we bring in some of these other names from high school and stuff like that. But you never know, right?
You never know.
Never know.
And I think our running backs will do good too.
I think so too. What do you think about? Do you think we need another running back from? What about this one from Ohio State that everybody's excited about? Do you think he might come?
Who
I don't have. I don't have his name off the top of my head. I just know he's from Ohio State. A lot of people seem to think that there's some interest there from both sides. That him and then Auburn, him coming here. But it seems like our running back room's pretty full to me.
Yeah, we don't need running back.
I wouldn't say I would say we don't have need for services at the running back room at the moment, but I will never say never. If he looks at the room and says he wants to be here, I say bring him on in if we got a scholarship for him.
Yeah, and how's the wide receiver room looking?
Well, not much different since last time we talked about it, but I think I feel very excited about this young talent that we have. I mean, remember, we haven't even seen Perry Thompson and Malcolm Simmons yet. They have yet to get on campus, and that's pretty
Yeah,
exciting.
they be there early. I guess early July.
Well, I don't have the move-in dates for the athletes. I know that sometimes they get to move them in at the very beginning of the summer. I could be wrong. It probably is dependent upon academics. I don't know where these kids' academics. Sometimes
Yeah.
they might have to finish out something in the summer. It's happened before. So yes, you would hope at the very latest that they would be there at the very end of July / beginning of August when fall camp starts.
My favorite player right now is Cam Coleman.
I'm not shocked. It seems to be everybody's fan favorite, and with good reason. He showed out in the spring game, and that was quite a little performance he put on to continue to build his hype story.
And I think Bryce Kane was injured.
I believe you are correct. I think he was a little banged up. There were several wide receivers that were very banged up going in to the spring game, so they unfortunately didn't get. And a lot of those were names we're familiar with, so they didn't get an opportunity to showcase anything. So obviously, I think the wide receiver room will look a lot different next year.
I like the defense backs. They do.
Yep.
Good too.
I think they did very well in a time where they are losing a lot of talent. What do you think about Janai coming back? Are you excited about that?
Janai Broom coming back.
Did you not know, Kevin?
No.
Kevin, I'm giving you breaking news right now. Janai is officially coming back. I'm not even kidding you.
Oh my!
What you been doing, man? Where you been? The news came out about 2 hours ago, huh? Does that make you happy?
I've been in church.
Okay, well, that's a good excuse. I won't fault you for that. The news broke while I was in the shower after doing yard work, so I was like, "Good night. Can they not just wait till I can get out of the shower?" But yes, Janai Broom is coming back, so I assume that you're very excited about that.
And that Pre-Grease supposed to be good too.
JP Begeeks, yes, he's supposed to be good. We'll see. Give people time to figure the things out when they get here, see if it translates over. But lots of good news for Auburn basketball recently.
Yeah, the women got a transfer from Arkansas.
What I just said, I will maintain that over to women's basketball too. So whatever it's men's, women's, Bruce Pearl, Coach Johnny Harris, we're talking about some good things happening right now. So it's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. So
how you think about Auburn softball?
I think I'm very excited after they won against LSU. Obviously, I think they've had some struggles this year. I'm just excited that we get to host the SEC softball tournament this year. That'll be cool.
We do.
Look, I'm just giving you all kinds of new news tonight, right? This is what I'm here for, Kevin, just to give you the breaking news.
I call on the Auburn on live.
Yeah.
With Jeffrey Lee.
All of them, yeah.
I start the call-in show the 7th straight week. I'm the first caller.
Listen, you're pretty regular here for us. You're usually our first caller, so that does not shock me here in the least. So I appreciate you being supportive of them and supportive of us.
Hopefully they have a fan day before.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Regular season game.
I hope so too, because you keep teasing me, telling me I'm going to see you there at one of these things, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to hold you to it. Okay.
Okay.
All right, buddy. It's good to hear from you tonight. Thanks for calling in. I'm glad we could break you that news for you.
War Eagle, bye.
War Eagle, buddy. That's our good friend Kevin calling in. Thank you so much to him. If you guys want to take part in the call-in show, hit that link up above in the YouTube link. If you're watching on Facebook, X, you won't be able to see that. So come on over. It's why I always stress you can watch it wherever you want, but YouTube is like the home base. You want to be subscribed there just so that you can have the full access to the majority of that. I always say too that it's best to follow us, subscribe, whatever the term is used at this platform, Facebook, whatever, across all social media, content creation stuff, audio podcasts, because while there is overlap in these certain places with things that we do. It's not always a complete overlap, and sometimes they're exclusive things that we'll only do there. We do something exclusive for TikTok. We do certain sharing elsewhere, that because it's just a better format in certain places. So that I say all that to say, that's my phrase tonight. Say all that to say, subscribe, follow everywhere, and call in tonight if you'd like to do just like Kevin. Still waiting on some of you regulars who have yet to hear your voice or see your face. Call into the show, and it's very easy to do so. So let's make this happen, Captain's all I'm saying. So, all right, we hit a variety of topics with Kevin. What else is all of y'all on all of y'all's minds tonight? I'd be interested to know, where else would you like them to fly the War Eagle? I've got it it's over here in the image over here. Where else do you want them to fly the Eagle? Like what other events would you think it would work well? I can probably tell you what would and wouldn't work well, simply because I used to work with birds and because I was a volunteer at the Raptor Center. So if you've got any thoughts on that, it's kind of why I put the image there. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. We'll talk about them. John, yes, we have been talking about Mr. Broom coming back. Janai Broom back in the fold for yet another season. And look, it doesn't get much bigger news for Auburn basketball these days than that one. That is humongous. What I love about the Janai story is in a world where the common gripe amongst fans will be disloyalty. Why are things these way? I hate this. Janai continues to be a guy that is more than likely, I haven't seen the papers myself, benefiting through NIL and getting to stay and make decisions that are going to better himself because of NIL and holding off that. It's called delayed gratification of the NBA, and waiting to really better yourself till you're really ready. Maximize your time at college. So that is one of the benefits of NIL, of the transfer portal, allowing players to put themselves in a better situation. And when they find, Janai is one of those good examples of all of these things that we lament sometimes working their best. So I agree. I share those frustrations, but at the same side, or the flip side of that coin, I see the good in it, and he's an example of that too. Let's see. Jay checking in from Baltimore. Rest in peace, Under Armour. Yes, that was the alma mater of the founder. Well, I say was, like it isn't anymore. It is the alma mater for them. I guess this moves them into the number 2 slot for like their prominent programs in Under Armour. Notre Dame. It used to be like Notre Dame, Auburn, and then maybe you say Maryland, South Carolina, and they used to have a bunch of the California schools. I don't know how things shake out now in that sense, but I assume that you're not too disappointed about that. But it will be interesting to see after losing Auburn what Under Armour's longevity will be. If they were to lose Notre Dame, I would say they're done. Notre Dame is probably the only thing that's keeping them afloat. Well, plus everything else they have, but Notre Dame's like the big cash cow that they have. Now that they've lost Auburn, and I guess South Carolina will be their only SEC representative now, which is good for them in terms of differentiation. But I think Auburn probably made the wise choice for the longer term, than sticking with Under Armour, who they've been with for 18 years. And I say that as someone who is a fan of them sticking with Under Armour. We don't get checked in from Baltimore all that much. So that's pretty cool. We get our Alabamas, our Georgias, our Floridas, our Tennessees, Texases, but we don't hear from Maryland. Mr. Spooky Buffalo is that, as he has himself here on YouTube. I haven't seen him the last couple of weeks, but he checks in from Iowa. I mean, we've had people all over the place. So nice to know Jay's checking in from Maryland. I think that's one of the cool things about not just this specific show, but what I do and what we do at E2C Network is getting to connect with all of you in the Auburn family and truly grasp that, when we think about this, it's no shock to anyone that if you walk outside and wear an Auburn hat in Alabama and Georgia, in some areas, even in like the peninsula, the panhandle of Florida, stretching up to, southern Tennessee, you'll find a lot of Auburn ties, but it goes much deeper, much broader than that. So that's what I've learned doing this, is how much bigger we are as a fan base than some people think sometimes. I think the Nike deal would be a huge benefit for the average AU fan attire. Why do you think that? A huge benefit. But if you're talking about price, I think they're pretty comparable in price. Although I think if I'm just thinking about economics and stuff, Nike being the bigger company, the more established company, has the ability to drop prices a little bit unless the demand is so high. I don't know. I think the Nike deal will be a huge benefit for the average AU fan. Why you think that Nike has better designs? Well, in some people's opinions, yeah. In some people's, I'll be honest with you. I don't care about who's got. I've seen some pretty cool designs from Under Armour, but that's not why I was in favor of continuing with a deal with them. It might be true that they have better designs. I'll reserve that for you graphic design people, you artistically creative people. You only need to look at the social media stuff from us and understand that's mostly me doing it, and you can understand that I'm not necessarily artistically visually inclined in that way. I just see something I like and go with it. Now, if you listen to our conversation with Clint last week, he talked a lot about that. We would see a lot of just their normal stuff that they already do with people, not a lot of maybe, I don't want to say lack of creativity, but they don't really have a need to push the boundaries of being cool and unique because of their name recognition, because of their stability with all the programs out there. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but that could be a result of all of that. Sometimes we don't think about these things. What's up, Corey? You've missed a ton. Show's already over. I'm kidding. We still got about 30 minutes left. So you can hop in with there wherever you like. We've talked about Janai. We've talked about transfer portal stuff. We have talked about Nike and Auburn again this week. That's going to still be carrying over. So there's plenty of things that we still can dive into some more. Clint is a treasure trove when he is on here. He never disappoints. Well, don't say that too loud. Don't let him hear you say that either, because then his little noggin will get too big and we won't be able to contain Clint Richardson. No, he definitely is he is a pro at what he does. He and I connected very early on when I started doing this in its earliest forms back in 2014. And we could tell right away there was a connection just outside of typical Auburn sports stuff that we liked a lot of the nuance, the history, all the stuff. He had his specialties, Auburn aesthetics. I had mine, and we were different in those ways, but there was definitely a connection there, which is why you guys get to see him so often until he makes me mad, and then he doesn't get to get on here anymore. I've had opportunities to kick him off, and he just works his way back in. I don't know why. Sorry about that. Got a phone call coming through right now. Usually that doesn't come through like that. I don't know why it did this time. So moving on from that. All right. What else is on your mind? Corey, since you just got here, drop some comments in topics that you maybe want us to talk about. Jay says, how relieved were y'all when UK hired Pope and not Pearl? Does anyone know if UK came after Pearl? A variety of channels speculated as much. I think the key word there is speculated. And I think sometimes, Jay, what we have to remember is, and I'm going to say this as a content creator, I don't try to do this to be disingenuous, but sometimes headlines, sometimes the way things are phrased are meant to evoke intrigue. And I don't even say Auburn people did this. Sometimes there's a need for hits and a need for chatter. And sometimes that's, there's a reason for that. I tend to go to sources that I know have information. You saw his daughter on social media on X being very adamant about people didn't know what they were talking about when those rumors were circulating. So that's a pretty good sign right there. Now, when people ask me, did I think Kentucky was going to come for Pearl? I said, well, I personally, I think they'd be stupid not to at least inquire with his agent. He's one of the best coaches in college basketball on all facets, coaching, recruiting, energy, being a pro at advertising himself and his programs. And there's a lot of value that comes with Bruce Pearl. So they would have been stupid not to engage in the process. Do I think that there was legitimate conversations, meaning somebody was at the table, an agent was at the table discussing? No. Do I think a phone call was made? Yeah. That'd be, what agent wouldn't be doing their job if that phone call wasn't initiated, fielded / facilitated. But I don't think it was, I don't think it was a threat in any way. Sorry about that cough. I'm still getting over the sickness a little bit. His appearance, you're talking about Clint, his appearance brought on the dust buster. That is very, very true. I don't know what's more shocking, Calipari leaving UK or them hiring Pope. I think we all saw things weren't well with Calipari in UK, so that shouldn't be as shocking. If you're talking about Calipari going to Arkansas, that's probably the better question. Is it more shocking that Calipari went to Arkansas than Mark Pope went to UK? I would say it's more shocking that Calipari went to Arkansas than Pope came to UK. He's got ties. Calipari had nothing. He had been at Memphis. That's closer to Arkansas for a little while. But that's all there was. Corey says, what's going on with running back recruiting? We talked about this a little earlier. The way it's looking, it looks like we're going to miss out on another one next year. Oh, you're taking a different approach to this. So you're talking about for next year, next year's class. So we lost out on, what was his name? Alvin Henderson going to Penn State. I believe that's what you're referencing. So why do you say we're going to miss out on another one? Are you assuming because they had nice stars that's the only good one out there? I'll remind you, Jarquez Hunter was, by most people's standards, a 3-star, and he plays like a 5-star on his best days and when he has a line to block from, I grant you. Running back recruiting has plenty. Recruiting in general is just in its infancy phase of this class. It truly, it begins whenever it begins, but that process of focus only began back in February when the last signing day began for the 2024 class. So there is time. There is, we didn't miss out on Jamarian Burnett. He chose to go somewhere else because Jarquez stayed. I think we can all see that. The writing on the wall. Alvin Henderson thinks his opportunities are going to be elsewhere. It could be that Alvin Henderson, from what I saw too, and what I heard, this is pure speculation. Let me just put that out there. Like, this is me just speculating and what some things I saw. Apparently there may be some people were saying there may be some attitude issues there that would not be welcome. I could be wrong. I probably am. Sometimes we don't go after the people that everybody thinks we should because there's other issues that we're not aware of. So just keep that in mind too. Keep that in mind. Corey brings up a good point when we talk about what was more shocking, Calipari going to Arkansas or Mark Pope coming to Kentucky. I forgot about that Calipari is best friends with their 80. So when you talk about that, I guess maybe it does make it an even playing field still because there are already ties there. I would probably swing it back in that conversation to it being more interesting, more shocking that Mark Pope would go after UK. Here's what I will say. I've seen an equal number of Kentucky fans agreeing that they settled, but I've also seen an equal number of Kentucky fans just being belligerent about, no, this is the guy. This is who we wanted all along. We may not have known his name, but this is who we wanted all along. I have been very pleasantly surprised by the number of realistic Kentucky fans that realized this was a wake-up call, that y'all might be a blue blood, but you ain't what you used to be, even with Calipari. Kentucky is never going to have problems getting their recruits. Kentucky is never going to have a problem, at least most years, of being relevant to the college basketball conversation. That's not going to go away. But to say that they are the blue blood Kentucky of old, that's a far cry. And I don't know that Mark Pope is going to be long-term the solution for all of that. But it's going to make things interesting because Kentucky will always be competitive in the SEC. Now with Calipari and his recruiting ability over at Arkansas, they already had a good start there at least. That could get really, really interesting. I was hoping Kentucky would hire Barbie. I think Tony Barbie ruined his chances. He's a head coach now, I believe, but of being a power conference coach ever again. I am one that prides myself on trying to build community here of understanding that we don't go after coaches and players, especially those that are currently with Auburn or and even in the past associated with Auburn, unless they give us a reason to. But when Tony Barbie flat out said, and I don't have the quote in front of me, so he may not have verbatim said this, but we can't win because we have Under Armour gear. And then Bruce Pearl walks in and takes team to the Final Four. I just showed how big of a loser mindset that was. And I can say that because I'm privy to some things with him and his staff that a lot of people weren't during his time at Auburn, because I had connections with people on his staff, and it wasn't pretty, y'all. It was not pretty. I will tell you that much. Kentucky would pay the cheese to bring Coach K out of retirement. I think anybody would. As much as we love to hate those that are highly successful in the sport, especially at maybe our expense or others, it's hard to deny, coaches like Coach K. Hey, man, it's the GOAT right there or one of the GOATs of college basketball. I just hate that Auburn didn't get a chance to beat him one more time. Devin's now. I think Devin's got some good thoughts on this because I think you follow BYU a little bit. You have so many teams, Devin. It's hard to keep track of them. Washington, BYU, North Carolina, because you got so many family connections. A lot of people are underestimating Pope. He's a good coach, and I think he will do well. That being said, I'm so excited for BYU's new head coach. I think that Mark Pope is a good basketball coach. I think he is a good hire for a program that is, if Auburn were to have hired a Mark Pope before Bruce Pearl, I would have probably said, that's a pretty smart hire. He's a pedigree of someone who knows how to win. That's the case they tried to make with Barbie, that he comes from the Calipari coaching tree. Of course, that's going to work out. But yes, I think he's a good coach. But I don't necessarily think it was the first nor the right choice for Kentucky, at least for what they deem should be their expectations to start off with. Yeah, but I don't think that's me thinking he's a bad coach. I don't think it's a reflection of him as a coach in general. Barbie used Under Armour as an excuse for his incompetence. He used several excuses for his incompetence, but it was. I will give Barbie this. He did his best to kind of come in and assimilate him to the Auburn family environment. I saw several occasions of that, but I think Auburn requires the right person for the job, and thankfully Bruce Pearl was it for us. I said, for sure it wasn't the first choice. Everyone was saying no, and everyone was saying no that probably didn't get asked too. It's kind of like the Auburn football coaching job, the first go around with Harsin. When Bill Clark said they asked and I said no, they may have asked his agent. It's kind of like when people were saying earlier, did Bruce get contacted by Kentucky? I think these agents, one, put their clients' names into a conversation on purpose because they're doing their job. But also, I think sometimes we forget. Where was I going to go with that? Wow, my brain just farted. I had a really good second thought and it just went away. Anyway, there are different angles to think of with that. Devin says, I got in a Kentucky space the night it was announced. And wow, it was full meltdown. Pitchforks were out for the 80. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that as well. Jay brings up, how do you feel about the upcoming NFL draft with Bo Nix? If he crushes it in the NFL, does Auburn or Oregon take credit? Feels like Jalen Hurts situation. Personally, I hope he does very well in the NFL. I agree with you that I hope he does very well. Regardless of what anybody says about him, how anybody feels about him, he will always be an Auburn graduate and still be an Auburn man. And he said as much in interviews that he's done. He still considers himself part of this family. And I think sometimes you can be part of a family, but you recognize it's best for you to keep your distance, which he's still come back. His family is closely tied with Auburn. I think he was at a volleyball match recently or something like that. He's definitely tried to come back and be around this stuff. In terms of him in the NFL draft, my sense is there's a lot of quarterbacks dropping further down as of late. I haven't followed the NFL draft speculation as closely as a lot of people, but that was the sense I got. I get the sense that, yeah, he's probably going, day 2. But if he falls, I think Bo's one of those people that he is very, 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 very talented, but he needs the right situation, aka Oregon, for him to flourish in. And so sometimes when the star quarterbacks, Bryce Young, get taken by these teams that are just in dire straits, their magic wears off. So when you see these other guys, Brock Purdy, get looked over, get passed over, but they find the right situation, the right scheme, the right coach, you're probably looking at a situation where Bo Nix can be ultra successful. Does that actually happen? Only time will tell. But I think Bo Nix can be a very deadly weapon for somebody in the NFL if he finds the right system. And to your question, does Auburn or Oregon take credit? Well, there will be more Oregon people taking credit than Auburn people. And I would not fault them for that. He had his greatest overall successes there. He was vying for the Heisman and the playoff there. And so I would not fault him or Oregon for taking that credit. But he'll always be an Auburn man. And he should be treated as such too. The state of Alabama needs to go for at least 6 teams in the tournament next year. We had 4 this year. So we had Auburn, we had Alabama, we had UAB, and who am I missing? Oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart. Somebody help me. It wasn't Jacksonville State this year. We played them in a Sanford. Oh my gosh. So yes, I would say Auburn and Alabama are shoo-ins for that if they maintain where they're currently at. I would say UAB, given the trajectory under Andy Kennedy, is highly probable for that. Sanford is always a good case in their respective conference to be their representative in the tournament. So that's probably a strong case too. You got to watch South Alabama. They'll put together a good basketball program down there every once in a while. I don't know that I see Troy rising up. Jacksonville State had their good little run to the tournament. I don't know that I see that happening. You could see an Alabama A&M. You could see an UAH. It'd be tough, but hey, I love, when the state of Alabama showcases that, hey, we have basketball state too, not just a football school. It's a lot of fun to be able to tote that little stat or status around. Let's see here. You think we have a chance with Julian Lewis? Anytime I get questions like this, I'll always answer this way. Of course, we always have a chance with anybody. How big a chance? Frankly, I don't know. I don't spend a lot of time focusing on the decisions of 18-year-olds. And I don't say that you shouldn't. That's just not something that I focus on, because you will always 9 times out of 10, you will be disappointed either by them not choosing Auburn or them getting here and not working out. And then you'll be calling for them to leave. To me, it sounds like there's a lot of promise in that direction, because we're talking about the kid from USC, or going to USC currently, right? Sounds like there's a lot of promise in that direction. I would wonder what his thoughts as a prospect would be with having Walker White here, and having to compete with him, vice versa as well. So that's an interesting thing to see. But if the NIL money is gonna be good, what does it really matter? I hope Bo doesn't get drafted by the Browns. I hope everybody hopes they don't get drafted by the Browns, although they did make the playoffs recently. How many teams passed on Dan Marino and Tom Brady? It all depends on what team and philosophy you're drafted with. Tom Brady is probably the best example overall of where you get drafted does not matter, and how you start your career does not matter. Where do you end up? That's what matters. And I think that, can I use this? I'm going to take my soapbox. I think that's what gets lost a lot of the times with fans and their speculation about stars. And this is why I preach this about Cam Coleman. Don't put this on this kid. Let him naturally develop. He may come and blow our minds in year one. It seems like that's going to be the case. But how many times? Aiden Holloway is the best and most current example. We had every reason to think that he was going to live up right away to that potential that we all saw early on, and it just didn't stay consistently. Do I think it's going to happen over time for him? I do. Wish it would be happening at Auburn. But a lot of the times people forget this notion. It's not how you start, it's how you finish the job. Another way of saying it, it's not how you respond. It's not about the mistakes you make. It's about how you respond to those mistakes. That philosophy, that way of thinking is lost a lot of times in our fandom. So just something, there's my soapbox for a little bit, something to keep in mind for all of us. Does softball play the same amount of games as baseball? That's a good question, Corey. I don't have the numbers in front of me. It's not far off. I don't believe it's the exact same. Here's a way to think of it. Softball starts a week early traditionally than baseball. And really it's kind of like it's a weekend and then they'll play a midweek game. No, that's wrong. This week it was a full week. It's usually a week differential when they start. Sometimes it's a week separated from when their postseason starts. Sometimes it's not. I think this year, let's look it up in the calendar, Kyle. You've got it on your computer right here in front of you. So let us see here. Auburn softball will play and host the SEC tournament. I'm trying to find it on my thing right here. It looks like the 7th through it says the 10th. I'm assuming that's when the SEC tournament is. I'm not seeing anything to indicate that is untrue. Yes, that looks like it's going to be the case, because that last series looks like it's with Ole Miss here. Baseball will continue that week of the SEC tournament for softball at Missouri. And then they will play one more week with games versus Alabama. And then the SEC baseball tournament begins. I would say it seems like they play a little less, but softball plays in so many of those big and small tournaments at the beginning of the season where they play multiple games a day that I bet it's pretty equal. Maybe a shade towards baseball. I'd have to do some real hard thinking on it. Jay says, off topic, feel free to ignore. What might be the future? How is this off topic? This is what this show's for. Jay, don't ever, if you can relate it back to Auburn, bring it up, my friend. Let's talk about it. Feel free to ignore what might be the future of Auburn softball. I have fond memories of watching them compete. The scandal was really a bummer. Would love to see us return to prominence. No, I think we're all there. I think we all have got some fond memories of the best years of the Myers era, and how people forget this too. Auburn has had 3 softball coaches: Tina Dees, Clint Myers, and Mickey Dean. About to have 4. That's it. And now it's not like Auburn softball has been around forever, but they've been around a while and only 3 coaches. It's pretty weird to think about. I wonder if that's replicated in other programs out there in the SEC, especially. Yes, we all want to see them return to prominence. I think Coach Mickey Dean got a lot of grief early because of lingering frustrations of how things ended there. And how do I say this? Because I know people watch the show. I think there's a contingency of fans within softball that view themselves as way more important than they actually are. And unfortunately, sometimes that comes out on social media, and they love to push narratives. These are people that go to all the softball games, most of them, and think because of that, that gives them more clout than others, not realizing that people can't afford to travel / go to games all the times like they can. It's just one of those things that I think people sometimes think they have earned more of a right to speak than others. And I say that around the Mickey Dean conversation. Am I going to say that we should continue down the same path? I'm not necessarily saying that, but it's hard for me to make an argument in defense of him. A few years ago, it was easier for me to make that case because he was fighting against COVID, a scandal recovery, all of that. But I'm happy that he chose to leave on his own time and in his own way. I think that's the best thing you can do. And I hope this will be the start of the next wave of success for softball. Corey says, has softball or baseball ever won a national championship? No and no. Now, softball was 1 game away, right? Yeah, because they won Oklahoma. They were in the national championship game. I remember sitting in my living room down there watching it. Lost game 1. I think we won game 2. In game 3, I think they won by like 3 runs or something like that. We had a chance, had people on base, came very close. But baseball has been to. Now, let's double check that. Let me just double check. Auburn baseball national championships. Let's make sure we haven't claimed one like in Alabama. Wikipedia says, not that I should be looking at Wikipedia, says we have SEC championships, but no national championships. But we have a College World Series appearances 6 different times, 2019 and 2022 being the most recent one of those under Butch Thompson. I'm going to say this, and not that I have seen him. He may have showed up tonight, but we had a guy on TikTok that really pushed me that Coach Butch Thompson should be let go because of the lack of success they're having right now, which I gave him my thoughts about that very vehemently. So obviously that's ridiculous. He said he was going to call in. He hasn't called in. And I say that not necessarily to pick on him, but a lot of times this is what I talk about and why I push back on a lot of this on social media. People will say things, and then when they have to stand in front of a microphone or on a video, they get a little less brave. So that's why when you see me interacting with people, maybe pushing back a little bit more and saying, if you wouldn't say it to a coach or a player's face, it doesn't need to be said here. And if you say you would say that, that just makes you a terrible person. And what this person said was not, I'm trying to remember exactly how he phrased it. It was not like terrible. It was just a poor take. Do you think Joe Ciampi was the best Lady Tigers coach? In my limited analysis of their history, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a pro of that. I would say yes. Coach, I guess Susan Nunley, I believe, was their coach for a time. If you want to talk about who had the biggest impact on not just women's sports, but women's basketball, I would probably say that's Susan Nunley. She's one of the ones I throw out there for who needs a statue. But don't know that we're going to ever see that. But Joe Ciampi would probably be the best coach. If Nell Fortner had stayed and continued the way she was heading in her career here, kind of dipped down after their success getting the number 1 seed in the tournament with DeWanna Bonner. She would be the number 1, but I think Coach Champy is firmly there. Would love to see a breakdown of NIL money by sport at Auburn. I wonder how it all shakes out. Would be nice to see how this is distributed by conference and overall nationally. Are you just curious about that, or is there like a reason you're looking for that? I mean, I'm curious by nature too. So that I was like, oh, I think you're going to see what you think you're going to see there. The bulk of it goes to football. The next bulk of it goes to men's basketball. Probably the next bulk goes to, well, when Suni was here, I would say the bulk of it goes to gymnastics with her deal she had. I think she was our highest NIL. That was reported. She was our highest NIL athlete. And then the next one was like Tank or something like that. Tank Bigsby at the time. I'm having to drink weird because I have a canker sore. That is just awful right now. But yeah, I think that's how you would see it. But you're not going to find, I think, surprises there. That'll only stir up the. I'll just leave that. The champion Vicky Orr teams were amazing. Ruthie Bolton as well. Austin and I did a video already, and it is a series. We're not doing it regularly, but just when we need a topic on the Auburn Experience Show, where we're doing the Mount Rushmore of certain things, and we're going to use this in perpetuity. We're going to do this whenever we need something, and we're not just like we did the Auburn quarterbacks Mount Rushmore, and we determined by our determinations, everybody else's, that the Mount Rushmore of Auburn quarterbacks: Pat Sullivan, Cam Newton, Jason Campbell, and you're probably looking at, well, it was quite a bit of a debate. So I'd have to go back and look at kind of what the votes were essentially when we saw some input from online. But it was a difficult decision for that fourth one. But when you talk about like women's basketball, who's your Mount Rushmore of just as a whole women's basketball? You're going to put Joe Champy, you're going to put Vicky Orr, you're going to put Ruthie Bolton. Who falls in that other spot? I think now it's DeWanna Bonner, but you got names like Allie Smalley there. I think honestly, Scott Grayson needs to be in that conversation as well. I think Nell Fortner needs to be in that conversation too, but those are your big names right there. Jay says, conspiracy theory incoming. The prevalence of field storming drastically increased post kick 6. Credit me when AU is the reason for folks storming, along with how many times ESPN showed the kick 6. I mean, I don't think you're far off. People saw the sheer pandemonium of that moment, and pandemonium in a good way, and wanted to feel something like that. Having experienced that myself for that event, there will never be anything like that. And not to make things on a somber note here, but the reason I love Auburn so much is because of my late father. And it warms my heart to know that the last Iron Bowl that he saw was that one. He never saw Auburn lose again to Alabama, and he saw them win in the greatest way possible, the greatest sports ending that's ever happened. It sends chills down my spine just talking about it. Now, much more important things in life than a football game and then Auburn. But as our connection that we had with Auburn, that is just cool to me. The last Iron Bowl that he ever saw. To this day, they say Chris Davis is still running, and that's all he knew on his deathbed. Anyway, to bring sentimental factors and all that stuff into that. All right, we are about at the end of the show. Let me hear some final thoughts, comments, questions, topics that you guys have before you want to log off. But don't run out of here without getting your topics hit. I'm going to go ahead and close down to the phone lines. Thanks to Kevin for calling in. As always, please don't be shy, guys. If you are some of you regulars here, would love to see, at the very least, hear your voices. You don't have to be on camera. It can be off camera too. Like there's an option not to even have your camera on, not like you have to hide yourself. But we'd just love to hear some of your voices sometimes too. Reminders of what's coming up next here at E2C Network. Your next scheduled live stream, scheduled being the keyword, is going to be this Sunday night for the Auburn Experience episode 75 live recording. Do not miss it. Always a good time. Me and Austin together again. We will hopefully both not be sick and awful and have other things pop up to have us push it back a day. But this Sunday, it's 9 Eastern time. We'll talk about sports, culture, and family. We'll be talking about Janai. We'll be talking transfer portal. We'll be talking about everything Auburn on that show. So join us for that if you can, and invite a friend. I will tell you that the times, they are crazy and busy right now. So if you're not subscribed, you're going to miss something. You probably, if you're not subscribed, missed to be a part of our live stream about Janai today. Don't miss that. You're going to miss content on other channels if you're not part of that. So TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, especially, I know we're broadcasting on YouTube right now, but all of those things. Also, if you are interested in helping keep the lights on here, like literally, look, they just cut off sometimes. They have before actually stream in the stream. If you're interested in help keeping the lights on, you can join the Conquer Club. You can do that by hitting the join button here on YouTube. Or if you want the best possible avenue to do that, join via patreon.com/E2C Network. It's in the description for the YouTube people of this video. And $1 a month gets you in the door into our Discord, other perks at different levels as well. It's the best way you continue to be part of this little family within the Auburn family. But even if you can't do that, if you're not interested in that, we just appreciate you being here and smashing that like button, because that is a humongous help as well. All right, final thoughts, questions, topics. Let's see. I think it's wrong for the NCAA being able to fine a team $200K for storming the field. Well, unfortunately, where we live in a world where there is way too much oversuing of things just for money's sake, they have to protect themselves some way. And so if they don't impose rules and regulations and punishments, then they could be held negligent by some money-sinking lawyer and entity. So unfortunately, that's just the reality. It's not their fault that they have to do it necessarily. I don't necessarily agree with the way that it's being implemented, but I guess if we were in their shoes, we would understand it a little bit more. But at least we got our jollies out of it before all of this started getting increased with the Kick 6. There was about to be a field storming for this year's Iron Bowl, and I was begging people before that play, please do not do this. Please do not do this. Let's not do this every single time we do this with Alabama now. But the problem is everybody wants to be a part of that. Everybody wants to experience that. So now they think that that's got to happen every time. Any chance Nike getting the apparel deal that we will see a Bo and Charles shoe come out? I think it would be awesome. I think Clint talked about this, that it definitely is a possibility now, that since that's their company. The way I interpreted what Clint said in his thought process on this, I wouldn't see anything extra special for the first year, but maybe in year 2 you might see. So you're probably 3 years, because it doesn't start till 2025, seeing something out there. Really hard to find an orange and blue Nike shoe that looks good, especially in our orange and blue, which of course is the best one. All right, folks, we're getting out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being part of the show. You are the best little family within the Auburn family. I appreciate you being here and hanging out with me. Till I talk to you again, War Eagle.